guys, Anthony from AntTech Airsoft here. Today I have a product review for you. It is on the Paragon Armory motor. Today I'm specifically going to look at the 22 TPA variant because I can actually do a shootout between this motor and my all-time favorite motor, which is the ASG 22 TPA. They're very similar, but they also have a lot of things not in common, and maybe this motor will kind of reign in as the champ. Before we move forward, I want to do the whole full disclosure thing. I was sent this motor for free. My opinion, my testing is not going to be swayed based on the free gift. While this one was sent to me, I did buy a small batch to test out and also use in some customer guns. I'm already confident out the gate that these are good enough for my customer guns. It's a solid motor. I mean, any tech can honestly look at this and say, like, yeah, it works pretty well. The real thing that I'm going to look at today is how this compares, how this inches up to my favorite motor. Yeah. I was actually sent this motor months ago. The reason why I'm doing the review now is because in order for me to do this shootout that I would like to do, I have to put it in my own gun. With that said, if you want to see what the inside of my personal 416 looks like, after tens of thousands of rounds in the summer heat, the winter coldness, the frost, the neglect on the shelf, you know, when I was playing with my Galil and all that stuff, that other video that I filmed today, because killing two birds with one stone, that's also going to be up. I'm just playing the other video, honestly. But it's nice for me to check my own work and show you guys. And in addition to that, I'm doing some experimental things in my own gun that could be very detrimental. It's good science. Back to the video. They have not updated this motor since I had received it as of the filming of this video. So, as of the filming of this video, if you were to get this motor, this is what you're getting. The only real difference in these motors, since I received it, is that they now offer these in short type. So you V3 guys can go nuts and test it out yourself. I must also mention that there are similar motors like this on the market. There are independent guys out there that have their own businesses, and they do order these motors, and you know, they make their changes to it and they do sell them. So I was sent another motor like that, and I don't fancy any one over the other. And I also don't necessarily think that it's all just Chinese garbage. I think that there is a difference between what you would get from Paragon Armory or like Real Deal as far as their motors go versus just ordering things from Chihai yourself. So I actually want to talk about Chihai a little bit. Chihai is a factory in Hong Kong or China, I believe. They manufacture motors. Most notably, it appears that they seem to be the ones that manufacture all of Rocket's motors. Rocket motors are good. People use Rocket high torques. People use SHS high torques. I mean, they've been really popular motors for a very long time. Obviously, they're very outshined by ASG motors and Tianli motors and Sistema motors and whatnot. But just because it's coming from the same factory doesn't mean that it's the same motor. Because these factories just manufacture motors to different specs. And this factory most certainly does not only manufacture AEG motors like for Airsoft. They make motors for different industries as well. So you better believe that you can request some changes to the specifications. And that's exactly what Paragon Armory has done. It's exactly what, you know, Real Deal has done. If I'm not naming other people, then sorry. These are just the two people that actually gave me a free motor to test, and they're also just, I guess they're close in the tech sphere to me. So I just happen to be exposed to this. This is what I have. That's enough about the whole Chihai thing. I'm kind of going on a little rant. I want to talk about the actual motor specs for this specific motor. I'm just going to kind of rattle it off. So I did mention that they do have these in short and long. Of those, you can get a 16 TPA, an 18 TPA, a 22 TPA, and a 28 TPA. I also want to mention that I wrote these bullet points down. I did not open this motor up and confirm these things. This information was provided to me by Paragon Armory. I'm just transmitting the information that he's already put out on his website. These are the motor specs. So if you were to ask him what the motor specs are, this is what he's going to tell you. Magnets. This has N35SH magnets in it. The ASG uses N42. The ASG magnets are a little bit stronger, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. There's some really good techs out there that really like motors and tech and build motors. They're talking about the benefits of using weaker magnets as opposed to the strongest ones you can find. I'm not that type of tech. I'm not a motor engineer. This is a D-type armature, which means that the pinion gear is a D-type. You could still fit an O-type on this if you press fit it on. Onto the armature, it says that it's machine dynamic balancing. That pretty much means that instead of balancing by means of adding putty to it, they're actually just they're cutting into the armature. I'm just kind of looking at that right now. They're cutting into the armature to reduce weight in order to balance it, as opposed to adding weight. It is wound with pure copper wire, and it is pretty obviously pure copper wire looking at it through here. However, I don't know the gauge of wire that they use, so that'd be pretty useful to know. The arm design is a standard arm design, and by that I mean if you look at the armature, you can either have it to where it's helical or to where each arm on the armature is actually just vertical. These are the standard ones, the vertical ones. ASG motors now actually use that helical design. The motor that I have here, though, that I'm comparing to, does have the standard design, not the helical design. This is an older ASG motor. The can is CNC. It is vented, which is nice because it lets that heat dissipate. And if you have a grip that actually has some holes in it, then there's a place for that heat to go. So it's good. It keeps things cool. The end bell is also CNC. Very typical end bell design. You know, the ribbed for your cooling end bell design. You're seeing it on the new rocket motors. ASG already does it. Sistema Motors did this already back in the day. You know, it's all good. This end bell is actually held in with the ring that fits inside the can, and it's fastened with these two screws, as opposed to the ASG, which actually uses these two Phillips screws. These screws on the end bell only hold down the brushes. That's it. The brush wires on this are thick, very thick, and comparing to the ASG motors, I gotta say, this ASG motor has thicker wire brushes on it. It's got pretty thick wire brushes. And this is where, right off the bat, I already feel like I like this about the ASG motor a bit more. I like the whole brush situation. This has horizontal brushes, it's very standard. These have the vertical brushes. It just works better. And, you know, these brush wires are thick. But, you know, this is still perfectly adequate. I mean, before ASG was doing this, people were still running motors like this for a long time. I mean, hell, people ran super insane builds to the ground with ZCI high torques. And not only were they horizontal, but they had plastic end bells, and their armatures were kind of gross, and copper wiring on the end bell. So this is still purely good, adequate upgrade. I'm like mesmerized by the fact that I'm spinning this motor like this. So I want to mention the bearings now. This has 4 bearings in it, as opposed to this ASG motor and most other motors that have 3. So the typical locations for the bearings would be at the end of the end bell, on the other end inside the can, and then also on the top of the tower. Or I guess in this case, bottom of the tower. This motor actually doesn't look like it has 3 bearings in it now that I'm looking at it. This one has 4 bearings in it. You have 1 on the end bell, you have 1 in the can, you have 1 at the bottom of the tower, and 1 at the top of the tower. And of course, it's just so smooth. So smooth. This pinion gear is pretty much an SHS pinion gear. It looks like it's CNC or cast, but it's a hardened steel pinion gear, and it's said to mesh very well with a wide variety of bevel gears, including Siege Techs. That kind of sums up the specs. So smooth. Given all of these specs, Paragon Armory states that this motor is going to run cooler, have better trigger response, have better rate of fire, and have better meshing with a wider variety of gear sets than the competing motors. While these motors are both 22 TPA, this one's 25,000 RPM. This is 22,000 RPM. I have no way to actually test that. I don't have the tool for that. When I'm considering whether or not a motor is good or bad, there are 4 main things I look for. One is amp draw. To test amp draw, I'm going to be using the Gate Control Station app and my Blue Link to actually read the amp draw as it's occurring. There'll be screen recordings of that. And then separately, because I don't want to chain too many things together, I'm going to use my old school Turnigy Meter Mega semi-auto trigger response. Man, the motor has to feel crispy. I have to be able to pull that trigger and just feel it. I have to feel it. But in addition to that, the Gate Control Station app also tells you what your semi-auto response time is, like to the millisecond. So that's very good. We're going to be using that as well. Rate of fire. One should be, I guess, faster than the other. I can chrono the rate of fire. That's fine. And then temperature. Here's the tricky one. The Gate Control Station app will let you know the temperature of your MOSFET, but not your motor. I'm gonna have to feel these by hand. I'm gonna take them out immediately after doing the test, and I'm pretty much just going to feel it. That's enough of me bantering about this. I'm gonna get this gearbox back together so that we can pop these motors in and get these metrics for you. Before conducting any of these tests, I'm gonna set active braking to 40%, and I'm going to turn pre-cocking off. Every single one of these tests will be conducted with a fully charged 11.1 volt 3000 mAh Titan lithium-ion battery. Okay, peak is 3.37 amps. Current is 2.11 amps. 2.01, 2.11. Yeah. Nice. And release it. It definitely sounds faster. 2.11 amps, 2.01 amps, 2.11 amps, 1.9 amps. Oh, it's getting lower. So the ASG kind of stopped at 2.01, didn't go lower than that. And the peak is 2.43. I'm gonna have these readings matched side by side with me conducting the same test but through the Gate Control Station app. I'm gonna record what appears to be the average full auto current as it's happening. I'm also gonna record what the average semi-spam current is as it's happening. Then I'm also just gonna record the overall peak throughout this entire trial. Paragon Armory motor. Let's do it. Alright, the tests are conducted and these are the results. I'm just going to rattle them off. Amp draw under no load. ASG was roughly around 2.11 amps. Paragon Armory motor was roughly around 1.9 amps under no load. Paragon Armory wins. Upon doing that test, I noticed that the Paragon Armory motor sounded like it was spinning faster than the ASG motor. And also when doing that test, I noticed that the Paragon Armory motor did not get as hot as the ASG motor. Amp draw underload. I did 2 tests for this. I did it with the Gate Control Station app as my tool, and I also used it with my watt meter as my tool. Gate Control Station, ASG. Full auto current, roughly 13.5 amps. And the semi-auto current when spamming is roughly 40 amps. Peak current, 85 amps. Paragon Armory motor. Full auto current, roughly 13.8 to 14 amps. There's a range there because it kind of bounced around a bit. Semi-auto, roughly 43 amps. Again, spamming on semi-auto. Peak current is roughly 89 amps. So Every metric for the Paragon Armory shows that we're drawing more amps than the ASG. But with the watt meter, full auto current for the ASG motor's around 12.5 amps. The Paragon Armory motor was roughly 13.1 amps. And while that's more, the semi-auto amp draw from the Paragon Armory motor was less than the semi-auto amp draw on the ASG motor. We have 31 amps versus 32 amps. Small difference, but a difference. The peak current was actually 31.8 amps for this test on the Paragon Armory motor. It was in fact 34.5-ish amps on the ASG motor. So if the peak current was less with the Paragon Armory motor, and we got less amp draw spamming on semi-auto, to me, that's like a technicality thing. I would say that the Paragon Armory motor wins. I mean, semi-auto is the mode in which you're going to draw the most amps. You're going to get that peak current. And it handled it better than the ASG, so I'll give that one to the Paragon Armory motor by technicality. But for the gate control station readings, ASG all the way. Conducting these tests, doing the full auto fire and the semi-auto fire, I did notice, again, the ASG motor got hotter, quicker, and it dissipated the heat slower in comparison to the Paragon Armory motor. Semi-auto response time. Now, as far as that feel, yeah, the Paragon Armory motor definitely felt crispier, felt good. ASG motor felt crispy, of course, but just not as crispy, just slightly less crispy, like maybe flaky. But not. As far as the metrics go, the gate control station app shows that the semi-auto response time for the ASG motor was 42.55 milliseconds, whereas with the Paragon Armory motor, it was 41.28 milliseconds. Objectively faster. Rate of fire. We had a rate of fire of 650 RPM, or 27.5 rounds per second with the ASG motor. That was measured using my X-Cortec X3500 chronograph. The rate of fire in the Paragon Armory motor was 17.25 RPM, or 28.75 RPS. So again, objectively, Paragon Armory motor was faster. And then just overall temperature, my thoughts on just the temperature. I kind of addressed what the temperature felt like throughout all of these tests. Yeah, dude, I think that the Paragon Armory motor runs cooler than the ASG motor. So, those are the metrics. If I had to pick which motor won and which motor I would prefer to use, it's going to be the Paragon Armory motor. That's going to be staying in this 416. I'm going to use it in the rain, I'm going to use it in the winter, I'm going to use it in all these conditions, and kind of put it through the same torment that the ASG motor went through. Still, I think that the Paragon Armory motor, again, won versus my favorite motor. Does that mean that the Paragon Armory motor is my favorite motor? It should be, but I'm an ASG fanboy. I don't want to let go yet. I'm not ready. It's hard. I need to seek some counseling first before I can just let go of my whole personality and adopt a new one. With all of that said, I still have to complain about stuff, right? So here's two things I would like to change. One of those things would be, I would like to see vertical brushes in the future. I think that would make a huge difference. I would also like to see these wire brushes be a little more thick. A little more thick. Get them thick like the ASG ones. Make them vertical. And then I think this motor will actually be damn near perfect. Otherwise, it's a fantastic motor. As it is, I think if you're an end user and you're purchasing this, if you were to solder the brushes to the plate here, on the end bell, you'll see better performance all around. I didn't do that for this test because my ASG motor is not, I didn't do that modification to my ASG motor. I want to thank Paragon Armory for supplying me the motor for this review. They're excellent motors. I think what Paragon Armory is doing is fantastic. He's a good tech. He has really cool pre-builds of some pretty nice milsimy guns. I'm talking URGIs and whatnot. You know, and he runs a good website and he has good products that he supplies to people in the US. His shipping is fast, he's personable, his customer service is fantastic. So if you guys need any parts or tech supplies or anything, there's another option right there. You can go to ParagonArmory.com. I know there's a bunch of stores now online that sell parts. People have their favorites, they have their preferences. All I'm saying is that Paragon Armory is another option that you would not be going wrong for choosing. I think that sums up this review for the Paragon Armory motor. If you guys like this type of content, give us a like, subscribe, leave a comment, And definitely check me out on Instagram at AntTech.airsoft. Check out my website, AntTechAirsoftStudios.com, and visit Zulu 24 Airsoft at 380 Mount Airy Road, New Windsor, New York, to play Airsoft at one of the best fields in New York. Until then, keep playing Airsoft, have fun, call your hits, tech on your guns, mess with your gear, undo your molly weaves and redo your molly weaves and all that stuff, and just be a good person while you do all of that. Have a good day.